What if Hazy Maze Cave was filled to the brim with thousands of bob-ombs, and someone accidentally lit a match? Well, sorry Mario, you're about to find out. Recently, I've been trying to push Super Mario 64 to its limits. Some of you may have seen my video a few weeks ago about adding thousands of Goombas to King Bob-omb's army in Bob-omb Battlefield. And many of you were wondering why I chose Goombas over Bob-ombs. Well, this is why. Hazy Maze Cave seems like a more suitable area for explosions. After all, it has a major gas leak on its lower level. So if someone were to toss a match down there, it'd essentially blow the whole place sky high. So today, we're giving Mario a match and having him go down there for us. And the experience is going to be really interesting. Creating weekly videos for all of you is something I strive to do. And it's through the generous support of sponsors like Frag Pro Shooter that I can keep doing that. Frag Pro Shooter is a mobile competitive shooter with over 50 million players, with 1 million players entering the fray each day. In the game, you'll build a team deck of 5 different characters who you'll be able to transfer between during your matches. The rules are simple. Your goal is to destroy the enemy bunkers while also defending your own bunkers. Each of your characters has a card type, which will define their actions when you aren't currently playing as them, either defending certain areas, playing it safe in the middle, or going on the offensive. There's over 80 different characters to collect, including the newest fragger, Duality. Duality can mark opponents with their demonic marking ability. And when your team hits your marked target, you gain Demonic Essence, which in turn increases how much damage you deal. Besides the normal mode, there's also a few others, including Payload, which is about getting your cart to the center of the map while also slowing down your opponent's cart. If you defend your cart, it will go faster, but it's a trade-off. So if you want to assemble a squad and head into the arena, you can download Frag Pro Shooter by clicking my link in the description below. And if you act right now, you can get a golden chest, 500 coins, and 50 diamonds for free when you sign up with my link. And a huge thanks to Frag Pro Shooter for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. So there's a few things we need to go over about the setup. Manually placing several thousand bob-ombs by hand would be a nightmare. So let's talk about how they actually get placed. This is something I'll briefly go over again when we tackle the entire game swarming with Goombas, because you guys voted for that to happen on a previous video, so I'm for sure doing it. Anyways, there is a procedure for loading these bob-ombs in, so it isn't so mind-numbingly repetitive. Essentially, the spawn dimensions of the map are used to determine the spawn range, and within that range, bob-ombs are spawned at random coordinates. However, to keep bob-ombs from mass spawning on the death barrier, the highest floor is referenced so that all spawns take place there. That doesn't mean we don't have bob-ombs spawning out in the void, but this makes it so that they are priority spawned in playable areas. The hiccup with this is that if there are 2 floors that occupy the same coordinates minus the Y value, the top floor will take priority. Not that you may see that because this video is going to be a hot mess, but I figured I'd let you know. Now, upon entering into Hazy Maze Cave, there's the second thing I want to address. And, I suppose the best way to reference it is a real-life example. Over in Turkmenistan, there's this place called the Darvaza gas crater, or commonly referred to as the Gates of Hell. So, like almost 50 years ago, this gas field caught fire, and it's been burning ever since. It's just this giant fiery pit that basically never stops. And that's what Hazy Maze Cave is. Now, while I'd love to blame it on the gas in the cave, it's actually something different. Trying to fit a few thousand bob-ombs in this cave basically triggers a never-ending explosion. Bob-ombs have this weird quirk in Super Mario 64 that make it so they explode if they touch another bob-omb, or if another bob-omb is occupying the same space. And when you try to fit too many bob-ombs in the same room, they are bound to touch, so they explode. And this explosion causes the other bob-ombs nearby to explode. So everything explodes, but bob-ombs are constantly loading in and out due to Mario's position. So new bob-ombs are constantly being thrown into the mix. But bob-ombs have another interesting property that most enemies don't have in Super Mario 64. They respawn. So previously blown up bob-ombs come back, thus creating a never-ending explosion loop in the cave. So it's kind of like the Darvaza gas crater, except instead of a raging fire, we have an infinite explosion. But because of the way loading new objects in the game works, it constantly keeps the explosion almost as if there's a ring around Mario. This is because bob-ombs don't become active until they get within a certain range of Mario. And when they do become active, they suddenly are able to react to other bob-ombs nearby, thus starting the chain reaction that reaches out to the areas all around Mario. But there are some more problems we need to address. Navigating an ever-exploding cave is absolutely amazing, and it's probably my weirdest Super Mario 64 experience to date, but there's some problems with this setup too. So Hazy Maze Cave has a lot of different paths we can take. We can head to the red corn area at the start, or we can head straight for the infamous Watch for Rolling Rocks room. On my first trip through the cave, I actually went to the red corn area first, and then worked my way to the elevator and up into the Rolling Rocks room. But after making my way around the Rolling Rocks, I discovered something odd. The door wouldn't open. The previous doors did open, but this one was sealed shut, and the bob-ombs were to blame. So in my previous video, the only way to get the Goombas to function was that the collision for the Goombas was removed, so they wouldn't push each other. This allows them to swarm without getting stuck on the Goomba in front of them. This also makes it so the game doesn't get bogged down to 0.01 frames per second, since it's trying to anticipate the pushing mechanics of 3,000 objects per frame. If X Goomba can't enter Y Goomba's space, or needs to be pushed, then how does that chain reaction affect every Goomba out there? Hint, the game basically dies. It's an extremely long, complicated loop that is something the game can't cleanly handle. But what's the point of having bob-ombs if they can't fulfill their destiny? So allowing this to remain active creates our never-ending explosion. But it also locks our doors, or at least certain doors. Every object in Super Mario 64 can only interact with a maximum of 4 objects at once, and some objects can only interact with 1. I asked Kaze Emanuar about this, and off the top of his head he was thinking that doors were only 1 as well. Regardless if the door is 1 interaction or more, the problem still persists that there are too many objects present. Bob-ombs, recurring explosions, etc., that the interactive limit for the door object is already reached. And because the bob-ombs respawn, the opportunity to open the door never arises because the object is basically being maxed out constantly. Or at least that is just an initial theory. It's also possible inactive bob-ombs are behind the door touching it, and they won't become active and move until we navigate through the door, which we can't. So unfortunately, this seals off half the level across the different instances in which it occurs. So to check out the other areas for the time being, we're scrapping the doors. With this, we can take a casual swim with Dory as chaos reigns around us. There's something surreal about seeing hundreds of bob-ombs exploding underwater as you draw near. But our problems only get worse, because we hit a massive roadblock once we make our way through the fire and flames to the toxic gas area. So I was really interested in checking out this specific part of the cave because from a theme perspective it made sense. Lots of gas equals a dangerous fiery reaction. So I grabbed my bag of marshmallows and casually slipped down into the toxic doom that waited for me below, only for the game to crash. Well, that's weird. Let's try it again. Crash. And another crash. Every time I tried to make my way into the toxic gas area, the game would crash at different intervals. At first I thought that perhaps it was just an oversight with the bob-omb mass spawning. I mean, the game would be prone to random crashing given the circumstances, no? But that's not the case at all. And for those of you who have indulged in the repository of Super Mario 64 logic that is Panenkoek 2012, you may have already thought of another reason why the game was crashing. The bob-ombs are to blame, but not in the way that most people would think. It turns out that when you have an ever-exploding cloud of doom that consumes an entire stage, that, things die. So this weird crash initially was researched by a few different individuals. It was first documented in 2014 unknowingly by user Funila Aegis, who crashed the game after randomly diving through the gas, and then was eventually further researched by mkdasher, OneTed59, Panenkoek 2012, and by Tyler Kehne, who checked the game's code to figure out why a crash like this could occur. Essentially what the problem is that a map-wide explosion basically killed the Monty mole before the mole actually becomes active. This explains why when I approached the areas where the holes were, I was getting inconsistent crashes in different locations. Each hole that the mole can travel to has a circular range around it that activates the mole when Mario steps inside it. The mole is actually invisible as an object until it is basically activated and teleported to the hole. However, if you kill the mole before this happens, the game crashes. We have a bit of a unique situation in our hands because in previous documented scenarios, Mario is typically nearby when the mole dies, but this time it's a chain reaction explosion that killed the invisible mole. So in order to explore this part of the cave at all, we basically need to delete moles from the map before they shatter Mario's universe. From doors refusing to open, to moles stopping time from beyond the grave, this bob-omb party has caused us a multitude of unexpected problems. With these tweaks, we are now free to explore every inch of the cave. And honestly, it's kinda neat seeing this dreary place be lively. There's fireworks in every room, and gold coins all over the place. And none of the stars are really any different than before, since the bob-ombs clear themselves out. So collecting them wouldn't actually be too interesting. But it was still a lot of fun to introduce some chaos to this cave and see all the things that transpired because of it. But with that, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to see more just like it, because I'm tackling the entire game full of Goombas really, really soon. Cheers.